Thank you for being here with us today. Hi, Jason. How are you doing?
Hello.
Can you give us some introduction about what you do and what OKX is?
Yeah, it's so great to be back at Web Summit here. I was here last year, and it's so good to see so many people. At OKX, we're a crypto exchange and platform. We have a very powerful wallet. We're live here in Brazil for over a year now, and it's been quite a journey for us. I've been at OKX for a little over 9 years now, so we've seen sort of the progression of crypto, how it's developed globally, and like I said, it's just great to be back.
Yeah, cool. So Jason, we met at Web Summit last year, and we talked a little bit about crypto. And during that time, we discussed a lot about the problems that we were facing in the crypto space. But when we look now, 1 year later, we can see that a lot of things change when we compare to back then. For example, we have a new administration in the US that brought some relief to the regulatory pressure that a lot of companies were suffering in the US. And at the same time, like the president of the biggest economy in the world is talking about Bitcoin in the White House and creating a Bitcoin reserve for the US government. And things like this, when we look at crypto in the past, were something really hard to imagine it happening, right? And now it's a reality. So I wanted to know your perspective on that. Like, do you think this stages that we're reaching, you think this will bring mass adoption to crypto? Or you still think there are more things needed to happen to reach this mass adoption?
Yeah, definitely. Crypto has come a long way. But yet there's a lot to do. We're hard at work. I know a lot of our peers in the space are hard at work. Like you mentioned, since the year ago, we've had dramatic changes in sort of regulatory approaches to how companies in the US are dealing with our stakeholders, policymakers, and things like that. I'm from the US, so I'm very familiar with what's happening over there, but also globally. Earlier in the year, we launched in Europe under the MiCA license, which is a sort of EU-wide framework that went into effect on January 1st. And we were the first, actually, crypto exchange to go live there. So we're operating now under that framework across the EU. We're also seeing a lot of efforts for regulators around the world in the Middle East, for example, in Singapore and elsewhere, where again, this is just sort of this trend where regulators are now realizing that crypto isn't going away. We now need to sort of put frameworks around so that good companies, and we keep sort of bad actors out from the space. And even here in Brazil, I hear that there's efforts being made to get something done by the end of this year. So again, that's very positive. I know our team here in Brazil has been actively working to provide feedback on some of the consultation that the central bank here has been doing. So a lot has changed.
Yeah. Do you consider the establishment of a crypto regulation in the US like the next big thing that needs to happen in crypto, or is there something else?
At least from the U.S. perspective, there are a couple bills that are waiting to be passed. I think hopefully in the next 6 to 9 months, we'll see some real good progress on that. But despite that, I think the attitude towards crypto has changed significantly, even without the legislation having passed. Right? Earlier in the day, I think the first panel, they talked about some of the executive orders that Trump had signed, and that already opened up a lot of federal agencies to be more open to crypto. One thing in particular is sort of this banking. Banking is always a big pain point for crypto companies because, as users try to onboard to crypto, they need to be able to move their dollars or reais or anything into crypto, and those banking rails for crypto companies are super important. We've made tremendous progress over the past year also on that front. And so I'm sure we'll dive a little bit deeper into sort of the institutional angle, but it's good to see sort of banks themselves also have that attitude change towards working with us.
Yeah. And about crypto adoption, I think we see two different fronts when we talk about that, right? We have developing markets where crypto is more used to solve real life problems. For example, to send money back to your family in a different country, or to protect your savings from the devaluation of your local currency, where we see places like Argentina and even Brazil. But we also have like markets more sophisticated like the US and Europe, where crypto is more viewed like an investment, a way for people to get money, but also to have like the digital gold in their wallets. Where do you see the adoption of crypto gain more traction, like in places where you're solving like problems that normal people have, or like in big markets, the institutional support?
Yeah, I mean, crypto is a lot of things, and it's different things to different people, like you said. Here in Brazil, we launched about a little over a year ago, and we have 35 people here on the ground, building and providing services for really localized products, right? We want a localized experience. We support PIX, we support, all the needs that local Brazilians need, but we're also replicating and doing that in other jurisdictions around the world. So I think your question is about where the traction's going to come. It really depends on the local usage of crypto. And so I think our focus is really to make sure that wherever we operate, we build and deliver products and services that are highly tailored to what the local population needs, right? Here and in Latin America, there's a huge emphasis on, the first step is to get into stablecoins, for example. And so we tailor the product so that you can do that. In the US, where we actually just recently launched OKX in the US also, just a week and a half ago. Again, that's making sure, again, like you said, there's a focus on making sure there's access to a wide variety of crypto tokens and assets because people want to trade that. So again, it's just different, but we're focusing really hard on making sure that those experiences are tailored.
Okay, I think this is a good moment to talk about the trends in the crypto market. Every year we have something new, right? We have AI, we have stablecoins, tokenization. What trends you're looking at right now have the biggest potential to drive the next wave of crypto?
Yeah, there are maybe 2 or 3 big trends that we're keeping an eye on. One is, as I mentioned earlier, institutions, banks, financial institutions, all of these guys, they're now really keen on getting involved. About a month ago, we announced a partnership with Standard Chartered to enable trading companies, firms to custody crypto assets with Standard Chartered, the bank, but still have access to their assets and be able to trade and gain liquidity on the exchange, on our exchange. We're doing this in enabling new tokenized assets like Franklin Templeton's money market fund, for example. Really, I think that's a key area where this is happening globally to bring the next wave of institutions into the asset class. Another one is stablecoins. I think stablecoins, a lot of people talk about stablecoins. It is really finding that product market fit where users here can, people might use it for storing their savings, but also for payments. I think it really does sort of take the experience one level up from existing services out there. And so at OKX, stablecoins is a key part of what we're focused on too.
Can I just interview here? Because the stablecoins is something that have been in the crypto space for a long time, right? It's not something new. But in the recent years, we're seeing a lot of people talking about stablecoins. We have PayPal creating their own stablecoins. We have Ripple also doing the same thing. What happened that everybody's talking about stablecoins now? Something specific?
So Tether, the dominant stablecoin, has been around for 11 years now, right? So it's not something new, but the adoption and sort of understanding of, wait a minute, stablecoins actually can be used and are trustworthy, and all the rails and all the experience around using stablecoins has really improved to a point where people are building on top of what stablecoin enables. I remember, this is 2016, I went to the Philippines to try to convince Cebuana, which is one of the Philippines' largest money remittance companies, to use stablecoins. And we just spent, it was very difficult just explaining what crypto was, what blockchain was. But now you go in, anyone, and you kind of talk about stablecoin, and they're like, okay, I already know what this is. Let's talk about what we can do. And so for us at OKX, we're trying to build, people come to us for liquidity. They come to us to store their assets. They want to be able to use the assets that they have on our platform. And so just earlier this morning, we announced that we would be focusing a new path for us, which is on payments also. So it's not available in Brazil quite yet, but we are launching something called OKX Pay, which will allow users that, users that are familiar with crypto, are familiar with crypto assets and stablecoins, to be able to use that as a form of payments for their friends, but also merchants and things like that. So I think that's very exciting area of focus for us.
Something else that's training is AI, right? Everybody's talking about AI here, like different sectors. Do you see a way that AI can interact with blockchain in a more meaningful way, like besides meme coins and stuff like this?
Yeah, we went through a AI meme coin craze in crypto a few months ago, right? And look, I think those are just kind of fun games. People were experimenting. Underneath, though, I think there is an element where we only have a brief moment here, so I'm not going to dive too deep into it, but I think there is an element where the trust layer of Bitcoin, of crypto, allows for AI agents to really be a little bit more self-sovereign, have economic agency, and I think that's really going to do something quite incredible. We're going to see real native digital economies with AI agents and doing all these things, acting on behalf of humans, but also doing things on their own. We're not quite there yet. That's sort of in the medium term. But at OKX, for us, AI is more really tailored towards solving real user needs in the moment now. And that relates more to things like compliance, detecting fraud, analyzing and making sure that there's no sort of nefarious behavior. That's sort of where we're initially focusing on AI. We also have more so automation tools that I wouldn't go as far to call them, full, AI type tools, but where people can do things like trading bots, and we have these tools, powerful tools that users can sort of automate their intentions, right, and their instructions. So I think that's very powerful. Trading bots that could be useful.
Okay, so let's talk about OKX, right? You guys had some problems in U.S. You pled guilty operating an illicit business, but then you paid a fine, and a month later you returned to the U.S. to rebuild the crypto exchange there. And it was not just OKX that suffered that. Like we saw the SEC going after Coinbase, Binance, even the centralized exchanges also suffered there. So can you tell us a bit what you learned from that experience, and how are you guys preparing to enter the U.S. market again?
Yeah, so we obviously, globally, we take a very cooperative, constructive approach with all of our stakeholders, regulators included. In the U.S. in particular, this was a case where we were servicing U.S. users from our offshore entity. Mm-hmm. And obviously that was something that we admitted to, and we paid a fine for that. I did mention that we just relaunched in the U.S., so OKX is live in the U.S. today, and that was a key part of sort of our interactions with the regulators there, was to make sure that they were comfortable with our business model, our compliance programs, and they absolutely were, which sort of opened the door to us being live in the U.S. so quickly. We just announced our new U.S. CEO, and so it's a very exciting time for us in the U.S., now that the page has turned and the sort of environment in the U.S. has changed. We're very excited about what's going on there. But this is sort of our approach to regulation, and working with policymakers globally is something that is consistent.
Yeah, cool. And the centralized exchange business is very competitive, right? We have a lot of big names consolidated in the market. Can you tell us what you guys doing different to try to get some advantage in the market?
One area, well, obviously, you're right. I think a lot of our services are very similar in nature. At the end of the day, for a centralized exchange, it boils down to, can you trust what we're doing? Are our products and services able to meet your needs? It's as simple as that, right? In the past, we've seen competitors do bad things, and obviously bad things have happened. And I think now, our efforts are around making sure we are transparent in what we do. We have a product called Proof of Reserves, which allow users to check on-chain whether we have done anything with your assets. They're there, and you can double-check that. Anyone can. And like I mentioned, we work with regulators to do sort of third-party checking, audits, and things like that. But then on the product side, we have the exchange. We have our wallet, which is very powerful, self-custodial wallet where users can take their crypto assets and do anything they want on-chain. And then, now we have this payments angle that we're layering into our products. I think what we're seeing and what we're hearing from users is that they already store their assets and trust us to use, their crypto. They're thinking more of us as a platform, not quite like a bank, but, like a starting point where they're doing everything they want financially within our ecosystem. And we're looking to see how we can take that further.
Okay, so to finish the conversation, let's talk about the future of crypto, right? In April, we saw the U.S. tariffs impacting all the markets, but Bitcoin showed its resilience, right? At a certain point, Bitcoin was less volatile than the stock market. And when we think about it, it's crazy because Bitcoin is famous for being super volatile and things like this. Do you think going forward, crypto will be more mature? What do you expect for the future of crypto?
I mean, 100% it will be, right? If you just zoom out, crypto's now on a 15, 16-year age-wise in terms of when Bitcoin started. The journey has only been more mature, more sophisticated products, more adoption, more awareness, just broader understanding of why crypto is important, why having control over your assets is important. But I think for us to continue that progression, there still needs to be a lot of work to be done on product, obviously, but that user experience of understanding why crypto is important for them, that boils down to education, that boils down to events like these, but also I think some really cool things that we're doing here in Brazil locally are, we just partnered with apparently a very famous comedian, Renato Albino. You know him?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm unaware, but I need to go back and watch his videos. Hopefully brush up on my Portuguese a little bit too. But he's partnering with us to go on a journey where he's going to be posting about his crypto journey, transparently about what he's doing and how he's learning. I think that's very important. I think it's very important for people to see how, even famous people, regular people, anyone can get involved and why it might be important for them, whether it's just diving into stablecoins so you have access to an inflation hedge, for example, or if you're trading, or if you're doing something in the wallet, doing some degen stuff on chain. We need that familiarity and we need that sort of guidance. And I think that's where crypto still has a lot of work to do.
Okay, awesome. Sounds exciting. Thank you guys so much for listening to us today. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Saori.